There is something growing in the forest floor right now that is not a plant. It is not an animal. It belongs to an entirely different kingdom of life. A kingdom so strange, so alien to our understanding, that scientists only fully recognized its separateness. In 1969, you eat it regularly. You probably ate it this week. It is a mushroom, and its story is unlike anything else. Mushrooms are fungi, and fungi are not plants. Plants make their own food from sunlight. Animals eat other organisms. Fungi do something different. They dissolve their food externally and absorb it. They secrete enzymes into whatever they are growing on, breaking it down, and then absorbing the nutrients. They are essentially eating the world from the outside. The part of a mushroom you eat is not really the mushroom. The mushroom, the cap and stem, is just the fruiting body. The equivalent of an apple on an apple tree. The real fungus is underground, a vast network of threads called mycelium that can extend for miles in every direction. The largest known organism on Earth is a fungus. Fungi have been on Earth for over 1 billion years. They were here long before the first plant, long before the first animal, long before dinosaurs, long before humans. In fact, life on land may not have been possible without fungi. The first plants that colonized land did so in partnership with fungi. Without fungal partners, plants could not absorb nutrients. Today, about 90% of land plants live in partnership with fungi. The fungi extend the plant's roots far beyond where they could reach alone. They deliver water and minerals in exchange for sugars that the plant produces through photosynthesis. Scientists call this network the mycorrhizal network. Journalists have given it a more beautiful name, the Wood Wide Web. Forests are not individual trees. They are communities, connected underground by fungi. Humans discovered mushrooms as food approximately the same time we discovered everything else. Paleolithic humans, hunter-gatherers, ate wild mushrooms alongside plants, roots, and animals. There is evidence of mushroom consumption in prehistoric human remains going back at least 13,000 years. Mushrooms were part of the original human diet long before agriculture. But mushrooms are dangerous, wildly, terrifyingly dangerous. Some mushrooms are among the most toxic substances found in nature. The deathcap mushroom, Amanita phalloides, looks remarkably similar to several edible species. It contains amatoxins that destroy the liver with no symptoms for the first 24 hours. By the time you feel sick, the damage is often irreversible. The history of mushroom poisoning is filled with extraordinary names. Pope Clement VII may have died from mushroom poisoning. The Roman Emperor Claudius was reportedly killed by mushrooms, possibly by his wife Agrippina, who had them poisoned. The Austrian composer Franz Schubert may have died partly from eating contaminated mushrooms. Mushrooms have changed the course of history by removing people from it. Despite the danger, ancient peoples developed sophisticated knowledge of which mushrooms were safe. This knowledge was passed orally from generation to generation. It was, and remains, one of the most important bodies of folk knowledge in human culture. In many European countries, mushroom foraging knowledge was considered part of basic survival literacy. Every grandmother knew which mushrooms to pick and which to leave. Ancient China has the longest documented history of medicinal mushroom use. Chinese medical texts, dating back over 2,000 years, describe specific mushrooms for specific conditions. The reishi mushroom, Ganoderma lucidum, was called the mushroom of immortality. It was so prized that it was reserved exclusively for emperors. A common person consuming a reishi mushroom could face serious punishment. Ancient Japan developed one of the most sophisticated mushroom cultures in the world, the shiitake mushroom. Lentinula edodes was being cultivated in Japan as early as 1100 AD. Japanese growers discovered that cutting patterns into the bark of oak logs and leaving them in the forest would encourage shiitake to grow. It was the world's first intentional mushroom cultivation. 700 years before any Western culture thought to try. In ancient Egypt, mushrooms were considered the food of the gods. Pharaohs ate them as delicacies. Common people were forbidden from touching them. Egyptian hieroglyphs describe mushrooms as a gift from the god Osiris. The ancient Romans called mushrooms cibus deorum, food of the gods. Every great ancient civilization placed mushrooms at the boundary between the ordinary and divine. In ancient Rome, mushrooms were so valued that special vessels were created just for cooking them. The bolitar, a special Roman mushroom pan, was used to prepare boletus mushrooms, which the Romans considered the greatest delicacy on earth. The Roman gourmet, Apicius, who wrote the earliest known cookbook, dedicated entire sections to mushrooms. Europe developed its own rich mushroom traditions. Eastern European cultures in Poland, Russia, Ukraine have some of the deepest mushroom foraging traditions in the world. The porcini mushroom, Boletus edulis, was a staple of Eastern European cooking for centuries. Dried in summer, stored through winter, added to soups and stews when fresh food was scarce. Mushrooms as winter survival food for the peasantry. France developed a particularly notable mushroom tradition. In the caves and tunnels around Paris, in the early 1800s, mushroom cultivation began. The old limestone quarry tunnels that had been used to build Paris itself provided perfect conditions. Cool, dark, humid. The Paris mushroom, Agaricus bisporus, was cultivated there in huge quantities. We now call it the button mushroom. The button mushroom now accounts for about 40% of all mushrooms commercially produced worldwide. Its cousin, the cremini mushroom, is exactly the same species, just slightly older, and the portobello mushroom is the same species again, left to grow fully mature. 3 different names, 3 different prices, 1 mushroom, the greatest marketing illusion in food history. But mushrooms have a stranger and more controversial history than just food. For thousands of years, certain mushrooms containing psychoactive compounds have been used in religious and spiritual rituals. Psilocybin mushrooms, called magic mushrooms, have been found depicted in cave art in Algeria and Spain, dating back 9,000 years. Some archaeologists believe early humans used them in shamanistic rituals. In Mesoamerica, the Aztecs and other cultures used psilocybin mushrooms in religious ceremonies. They called them Tionanacatl, meaning flesh of the gods. Spanish priests, who arrived in the 16th century, were horrified. They described the rituals and tried to suppress them. But the tradition was too deeply embedded in indigenous culture to be destroyed. In the 20th century, Western science became interested in these compounds. In 1958, Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann, the same man who discovered LSD, isolated psilocybin from magic mushrooms. In the 1960s, Harvard psychologist Timothy Leary conducted controversial experiments with psilocybin. The research was eventually shut down. Psilocybin was made illegal in most countries, but the scientific interest never fully disappeared. Today, psilocybin research has undergone a remarkable revival. Clinical trials at Johns Hopkins, NYU, and Imperial College London have shown that psilocybin, when administered carefully in a therapeutic setting, may be profoundly effective for treatment-resistant depression, for end-of-life anxiety in cancer patients, for addiction. The ancient Aztec sacred mushroom is being studied in the most advanced medical research facilities in the world. But mushrooms have another extraordinary story in medicine that has nothing to do with psychedelics. In 1928, Alexander Fleming left a petri dish of bacteria on his laboratory bench before going on holiday. When he returned, he noticed something unusual. A mold had contaminated the dish, and around the mold, all the bacteria were dead. That mold was Penicillium, a fungus, and from it came penicillin. Penicillin, derived from a fungus, became the first antibiotic. It has saved an estimated 200 million lives since its development. Almost every antibiotic we use today either comes from fungi directly or was developed by studying how fungal compounds kill bacteria. The mushroom kingdom has been fighting bacteria for hundreds of millions of years. We are borrowing their weapons. Fungi also gave us other revolutionary medicines. Cyclosporine, derived from a fungus, is the drug that makes organ transplants possible. Without cyclosporine, the immune system would reject any transplanted organ. The first successful kidney transplant. The first heart transplant, all dependent on a drug, that came from a fungus. Every person alive today who received a transplanted organ owes their life to the fungal kingdom. The truffle, perhaps the most extraordinary of all fungi, has its own remarkable history. Truffles are fungi that grow entirely underground, in partnership with tree roots. They cannot be farmed conventionally. They grow where they choose, on their own terms, on their own timeline. The white truffle of Alba, Italy, can sell for more than $3,000 per kilogram, more expensive than gold. By weight, truffle hunting is ancient. The ancient Romans prized truffles. They believed truffles grew where lightning struck the earth. They called them a miracle of nature that could not be explained. Truffles appear in ancient texts from Egypt, Greece, and Rome, always described with the same mixture of confusion, wonder, and extreme desire. For over 2,000 years, nobody understood how truffles reproduced or where exactly they came from. Modern truffle farming has made some progress. By inoculating the roots of young oak saplings with truffle spores and then planting them in carefully chosen soil in appropriate climates, some farmers can now produce truffles. But it takes at least 7 years before the first truffle appears, and even then, it is not guaranteed. The truffle remains on its own terms. Japan has given the world some of its most extraordinary mushroom culinary traditions. Dashi, the fundamental broth of Japanese cooking, is made with dried shiitake mushrooms. Matsutake mushrooms, pine mushrooms, are among the most prized and expensive foods in Japan. A single perfect matsutake can sell for several $100s. The Japanese relationship with mushrooms goes beyond food into the realm of aesthetics. Fungi have also been extraordinarily important in food production beyond the mushroom itself. Yeast, a fungus, makes bread rise. Yeast ferments beer and wine. Yeast ferments cheese. The fungi that make blue cheese, the mold in Roquefort, the Penicillium roqueforti, is a direct relative of the Penicillium that gave us penicillin. The world's food system is built on fungi. The environmental importance of fungi cannot be overstated. Fungi are nature's recyclers. Without fungi, dead organic matter would simply pile up. Forests would be buried in fallen trees and leaves. Fungi break down dead plant and animal matter, releasing the nutrients back into the soil for new growth. Every forest, every field, every garden depends on fungi. Scientists are now exploring whether fungi can help solve some of our most urgent environmental problems. Mycoremediation is the use of fungi to clean up pollution. Certain fungi can break down oil spills, plastic waste, heavy metal contamination. Agricultural pesticides, the same ability that allows fungi to break down wood, may allow them to break down the waste of industrial civilization. Perhaps the most exciting recent development is mycelium packaging. Companies are now growing packaging materials from agricultural waste, bound together by mycelium. The mycelium grows through the waste material, binding it into a solid, lightweight structure. When you are done with the packaging, you can compost it. It biodegrades completely in weeks. Fungi replacing plastic. The cultural and spiritual relationship between humans and mushrooms runs deeper than most people realize. Some scholars have proposed the stoned ape theory, the idea that when ancient humans consumed psychoactive mushrooms growing in the dung of cattle they were following on the African savanna, the experience may have contributed to the expansion of human consciousness, to the development of language, of art, of religion. It is controversial, but it is not absurd. The modern food world has become increasingly interested in mushrooms for new reasons. Mushrooms are being studied as a sustainable protein source. They require very little land, very little water. They can be grown on agricultural waste. They produce no methane, and they can produce more food per square meter than almost any crop. In a world facing food security challenges, the mushroom may be part of the solution. Mushrooms have also entered the world of meat substitutes. Mycoprotein, a protein derived from fungi, is the main ingredient in corn, one of the world's most successful meat substitute products. First developed in Britain in the 1960s, corn is now sold in over 20 countries. The same organism that has been decomposing wood for hundreds of millions of years is now being made into something that tastes like chicken. The lion's mane mushroom, Hericium erinaceus, has become the subject of remarkable research. It looks completely unlike any other mushroom, white, flowing, resembling a waterfall or a lion's mane. Studies suggest that compounds in lion's mane may stimulate the growth of nerve cells, may protect against neurodegenerative diseases, may improve memory and cognitive function. The research is preliminary, but the results are promising enough that neuroscientists around the world are paying close attention. From the ancient forests, where our Paleolithic ancestors first gathered wild mushrooms for survival, to the imperial courts of China, where reishi was reserved for emperors and gods, to the limestone caves under Paris, where button mushrooms were grown by the ton, to Alexander Fleming's contaminated dish that saved hundreds of millions of lives, to the clinical trial rooms where psilocybin is being given a second chance as medicine. The fungi kingdom is estimated to contain between 2.5 million and nearly 4 million species. We have identified only about 120,000. The vast majority of fungal species are completely unknown to science. In every forest, every soil sample, every ocean sediment, undiscovered fungi are doing things we cannot yet imagine or understand. Some scientists believe that fungi may be the key to some of our most urgent problems. Clean energy from fungal processes, new antibiotics from undiscovered species, biodegradable materials, carbon sequestration, soil restoration, plastic degradation. The solutions to the problems of the 21st century may be waiting in the fungal kingdom that we have barely begun to explore. The mushroom sits at the edge of our understanding. It is food. It is medicine. It is poison. It is spiritual experience. It is industrial material. It is environmental solution. It is the recycler of death, the enabler of life, the connector of forests, the saver of millions, the killer of emperors, the gift of the gods, all in one, strange, quiet, extraordinary form of life. The next time you eat a mushroom, in your pasta, on your pizza, in your soup, or on toast, remember, you are eating something from another kingdom of life entirely, something that was here 1 billion years before you, something that built the world you live in, something we are only just beginning to understand, and something that may help us save the world we are in danger of destroying. Thank you for watching this story on Storia English. If you enjoyed learning English through this story, please subscribe to Storia English. Every week we bring you a new story from history, told in clear, slow, simple English, so you can improve your listening, vocabulary, and confidence, naturally, without stress. We will see you in the next story.